Um, Yesterday was different for me in that almost the whole day, from waking up in the morning around 6:30, well, exactly at 6:29, and executing a morning routine that I customize to where I'm at each week, but putting doing some wellness exercises, praying, journaling a little bit, doing some gratitude entries, eating the and then I moved into some of the focus work that I've been doing, using a couple tools, a variety of tools, like a mastery journal, and a 100-day focus journal. And I really was able to uh, work through the areas I wanted to focus on. I have been really pushing myself to delegate some responsibilities. Well, not responsibilities, but actions that can consume too much of my time, even if it means I have to train a person how to do something. That's an investment, so I won't have to repeat the action, or it builds skill sets for them to do it on my behalf in the future. So I'm seeing in the power of that type of delegation. I'm comfortable delegating, but I'm used to the kind of delegation that is in a either administrative role where you're bringing people in with a specific skill set, or the restaurant industry where you teach and then it's bam bam bam, you lead, and that kind of delegation is a little different. And this is a new delegation, but it also helps people to develop a different skill, and allow for people to be exposed to me, but it be a win-win for all of us. And by the time I went to therapy in the afternoon, I had a feeling come up that I wasn't sure what to do with, because I had started executing a no policy that I was comfortable with, especially over the next 100 days. And I was telling my therapist that I felt guilty about how much focus I had put on myself, and I hadn't even gotten to OPAs, which John Lee Dumas says those are other people's agendas, and I like that. OPAs, where even usually I'll take a phone call, make a phone call on a trip when I'm commuting from a longer distance. I'll catch up, do something, talk to someone, or even just call a friend, call a family member, that kind of thing. And instead, I started listening to a book on Audible, from one of my favorite authors, and so I realized at this track, if once I went to therapy, and then afterwards, when I was gonna head to get my eyeglasses, I realized I was gonna listen to more Audible instead of making some phone calls, and um, and I realized that even the phone call that I would need to make right around that time still would be just about my needs. And I wouldn't get to anybody else's stuff until an event later that day around 6. And it felt right, but it didn't sit right at the same time. And there was this guilt that was trying to present itself. And instead of just either ignoring it or just saying, "Oh, you're wrong," I've learned through doing some of Cal Cease's work to sit there and say, okay, that doesn't feel right. That feels like guilt, and and where do I feel it? But and I'm okay with that. Let it sit there. That's interesting, and not try to fix it. And I was able, instead of trying to fix it, just be aware of it. And when I brought it up in therapy, I talked to my therapist about it, and we talked about how sometimes the distorted, like I've had a lot of negative internal thoughts that are directed to me from me, and I've also had ones where I think even to the level of paranoia where others will be disappointed or thinking horrible things about me, and it's 99% not been the truth. But there have been instances, but 99% of it's not based on anything other than anxiety, and at times if it's been paranoia. Um, and my therapist said that you taking really good care of yourself, and it's still even being reflected in my personal wellness, but also my occupational wellness, so focused on my business stuff. He says that's what God would want, and he knows that in our therapy we do talk about God as self-directed by my conversations about God, so it's appropriate. And he said that often, especially in the type of work, the public health work that we both do, you can burn out. And other work, you just burn out and you don't take care of yourself. And then when you're doing service work for God, in any type of environment, it doesn't just have to be a church, but when you're doing service work, as in that the work I do is for the pleasure of God and His abundance and His glory, it made sense to me that God wouldn't want me to be miserable and burnt out and overextended and not well. And I started to cry. And because it brought up feelings of yes, because my mindset had been for decades, even when I wasn't tapped into it, that I was here to serve for the pleasure of mankind and be used up and spit out, used to people's whatever their needs were. And it didn't matter. It could be something as minute as giving a person a ride to the grocery store, or being sexually assaulted. I equated those things as equal as, and over time they added up to be cumulative, to that I was put on this earth, even by God, to just be used by others. And as I've done a lot of work on myself and with others to help me, I realized the crying that happened yesterday was about that realization of God put me on this earth, yes, to serve others, as I believe we all are here to serve others. But He put me on this earth to be of service, not to be used, chewed up, spit out, but put me on this earth to be of service. So if 90% of my day or my effort is about taking care of His temple, which is me, and that means different things, like whether it's my mental health, my physical health, my occupational health, all kinds of things. And if 10% is then left for specific other people or organizations, things like that, or activities, but I believe those things, just like tithing, will be magnified beyond that 10% ratio. And so that sitting with that guilt led me to a place of release at the end, because I also realized how wonderful it is to be an opportunity to be on this earth for service, whereas before it felt it felt so heavy and so awful to believe that you're on this earth to be used up, because why would you want to stay on this earth if you think that that's all you're here for? And those were the kind of thoughts that colored my darkness more, because things like suicide and harm and other things just make sense if you really believe that you're on this earth for others' use of, for whatever reason. So I'll make sure I share some of the links of things that I've mentioned, and have a great day.